Oh, can you see how complicated this whole section is on persuasion? I mean, this is not, Hebrews is just, it astounds me. First of all, we even looked at Mark. Mark is the simplest, and Hebrews is probably the most complex. The language in Hebrews, everything, if you go and look online, if you go look at sources, you'll find that probably every professor theologist professor about the New Testament documents will tell you that Hebrews is the most complex. What I want to point out, though, is have you noticed how complex the arguments are? I mean, the typical strain, and I just have to repeat this, the typical strain by a lot of people you hear, first of all, we profess the simplicity of the gospel. And I think that's why it resonates so much, the simplicity of the gospel. Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. But the simplicity of the gospel is not a function of mysticism or belief. Christ has died, historical fact. Christ is risen, historical fact. Christ will come again is a mystic concept. But do you see how this fits as a logical argument? In other words, if Christ has died, then when he's risen, what does that mean?
He did it once, he can do it again.
Yeah, and what he said, it's a proof text, right? It's kind of like, if A equals B,
A plus B equals C.
B equals C, then A equals C, right? It is in a singular statement of the mystery of Christ, which I wish we had I really wish we had it in I don't know why, we've taken it out of our out of our Eucharistic prayers. We've taken that out. It is still in the verbiage for if you look carefully, you'll find it in the songs, in the songs and prefaces to it. But we don't sing a lot of prefaces sometimes. But Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. Almost every church in Christendom at Eucharist says those words. That's the mystery of Christ. We pronounce the mystery of Christ. Why we as Lutherans took that out, I have no clue. That is probably one of the most important statements of Christian thought, especially pre-literate Christian thought, before we all had Bibles in our pockets, right? So, but what I want to point out is there's a simplicity of the gospel, but the complexity of the whole point. And I think that is perfectly reflected in Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. Because it is both a logical argument, a pure logical argument. It has assumptions, definitions, and a logical conclusion, right? And we see Hebrews, which is a very complex argument and document. So why are these people running around like crazy heads saying, the Gospels, the New Testament documents, they're just what, trite literature? Has anyone ever said that? I've never heard that, right? Why? Because it's not true, and they know it's not true. So as we delve into the depths of this, of the complexities of this, very, very, very complex argument in Greek, a Greek argument, we should all feel like scholars, which we are, but I think it reflects the power, the complexity of both God and Christ. Just think about it. This is the best, it's not. This is a logical argument that the church, that the scholars who wrote it, the men who wrote it, were trying to express in such a way to convince, to persuade those who read it, who heard it. Remember, because they're mnemonics, who heard it read or who learned it. This was their cogent, logical argument to prove Christ and to prove what it meant for people in this time. So I don't know. To me, that's amazing. Now here's our word. We've got to sit this one, pistis, which means to be persuaded or persuasion. This means persuasion. There is no word for faith or belief in Greek. The closest you're going to get is pathos. And by the way, I just want to point out, the message of the Gospels is we are not fated. We are not fated. That was the Greeks believed you were fated. Romans believed to a large degree you were fated. The message of Christ is you are not fated. And so therefore, the whole point is that I can be convinced or persuaded of something. Now here, this word, we kind of had it last week in context of a prefix, lambano, but this is, I just repeated it. We'll see it again. Lambanin, this is lambano. Lambano means to take. And I mentioned before, if you look at vines, vines is usually considered the main source for Greek. So vines, right here, I got it for you, lambano. The long form primary verb, it's a primary verb which is used only as alternate in certain cases, tenses, to take. It's the only thing it means in Greek. Now, if you look at Strong's, Strong's is an older and less accurate understanding of Greek. And in Strong's, it will say it means passively to receive. You know what that means, right? Oh boy, this is really difficult. If we were in college, what I would do is your prereq to this class would be a class in some basic language, because then we would learn about, the nominative, the accusative, the dative, and the genitive cases, right, in the languages. And then we would all have a focus that would be a foundation. In English, we call this the subject, the object, subject, object. What is the dative case? Is that the object of the predicate? Is that the object of the predicate? Dative, okay. Accusative is, okay. Nominative. I went to the store. The store is the object. I went. Let's see. No. The goose was kicked by me. So by me that's a dative case. The goose is the accusative, and or the goose is an. My point is this. Okay. When we talk about passive cases or different tenses, then it is really easy to get confused. And so Strong's was confused. Vines is the more accurate source. And if you go look at Woodhouse also will tell you that the only lambanos means to take and not to receive. And that's why if you wanted to even use it in that context, you would have to use it in a dative sense. It was by me or as a predicate of a object. So anyway, and the genitive case is the possessive case. So what I do is I've already done this for you when we translate stuff. I've already figured out what cases they are and I've even tried to anglicize them so that we understand them better. But specifically, lambanos means to take. This word, thelemos, Themelios, themelios. Themelios means, let's see, I don't think we've ever had this before. It's a derivative of tethemi, which is a primary verb that we've seen. This means to place, but themelios means something put down. Now, this is an interesting word because it's translated, look at what's translated in the King James as foundation. And it's also translated in the NIV as foundation. But it's something put down. There's another word that's translated foundation also in Greek. You may remember the word basis? basis, meaning a foot, and it's the basis for the word basis, which means foot in Greek, is the like base, right? Is also a word. It is also the beginning of the word bacillus. Bacillus, and basically a bacillus, a bacillus. They're okay. Bacillus has come down to us meaning a building, right? But bacillus, base, foot, a bacillus is a place where the king stays. And the word bacillus means king or sovereign in Greek. So I want to point out to you, if I meant foundation, I wouldn't use this word, would I? I'd use bacillus or basis. We've seen this word used multiple times. But instead, it means something put down. Well, I guess I could put down a foundation. The i.e., a substracation of a building. A substracation. A substracation means kind of a foundation. Anyway, buildings have foundations, but this isn't necessarily the word that's used for it. So just point that out. We'll see that. Now, we just came off of 6, and there is so much in 6. I want to remind you of 2 things. Number 1, I put it on there. I should probably put 6 on here too. We're going to find other verses that are key, other statements, other clauses, other sets that are key things in this chapter. But the key ones to the beginning are the first and second. But persuasion stands under an expectation of proof of deeds not seeing. And the second one, assigning a reason, in this the members of the Israelite Sanhedrin became a witness to Christ. So this starts with the witness of Christ and then delves into the examples of those who were convinced and did something, and the reflection of it. And so in the last one where we had 6, where we had a gathering of thought, it's not really a telos, but yet we have a gathering of thought that says basically those who find God, literally it is impossible to come near and gratify God unless one is persuaded by a logical argument. It is impossible to come near and gratify God unless one is persuaded by a logical argument. And this comes right after Enoch, because Enoch pleased God by being persuaded. But guess what? Enoch was not persuaded by a logical argument. Enoch was persuaded by what he saw. Then we have this verse that says, it is impossible to come near and gratify God unless one is persuaded by a logical argument. And look what it says next. 7. Now I'm going to read the NIV, so don't get all, clouded by it. By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By his faith he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. So 6 says, it's impossible to come near and gratify God unless one is persuaded by a logical argument. And 7 says, by faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen. Let's see what it says in the Greek. Okay, I know these are complicated things, but we'll get into it. So I've given it to you here. By is added, faith is pistis, persuasion. Persuasion, Noah being warned. And it's not being warned, it's chermatio, to utter an oracle. To utter an oracle. Of God is added. Of, it's not of, it's peri, through. Peri is an interesting word. I should probably give it to you for the word of the day. But peri means to pierce. It comes from the foundation of pierce. It is not really a preposition. It is kind of used as a transitional preposition, but it's not a preposition in Greek. Peri is a prefix, but it means literally, it comes from the word to pierce. So when it means through, and I've translated it some other places or put it in other places where through all over. It means literally through all over. So to be pierced through all over. Things is added. Not is medepo. Not even yet. Not even yet. Seen is blepo, to look at. As yet is added. Moved with fear is lambano. Moved with fear is lambano. Okay, now how are you going to get how are you going to get moved with fear out of lambano? Remember last week, lambano? This is one of the reasons I left this word, because last time we had lambano. So this is to take. You means
good.
Good. To take well, or to take good. Well, it Greeks, to be circumspect. In other words, to take well carefully. So in other words, okay, if I just grabbed my coffee cup, like uncarefully, I could spill everything, right? But if I lambano, and this is a simplistic explanation, then I don't spill it, right? So I take it up carefully. But that's not moved with fear, is it? Oh well. To be circumspect. Okay, prepared. Catus quaseo. This is a word, remember, that we had last week, and I told you this is a skuo word. So down skuo, it literally means to prepare thoroughly. Prepare thoroughly. I thought about giving you this word, an ark. It's kibotos. It's a box. It's a box. Pandora's box was a kibotos. Well, alternately, it depends on the myth cycle you read. Pandora's box was either a kibotos, and a kibotos usually means something big, because the Greeks didn't make little boxes. Or a jar. In the early myths, Pandora's box was a jar. Pandora's jar. But I guess that doesn't fit very well in English to have Pandora's jar. That sounds kind of funny, right? The Greeks actually made locks for jars. And we probably got our piggy banks from the Greeks. Because what the Greeks did is they made jars and they would put stuff in it. If you had a lock on it, how did you know somebody got in your jar? It was broken. Yeah. And plus, okay.
Was it a seal or a lock?
It was actually, they believe, we haven't found very many examples because they get rotted, they get corroded, over time because of the type of stuff. And also, we believe they made some of the locks like knots. The Gorgon's knot was not a knot. The Gorgon's knot was a knot for tying things up that was supposedly untieable, right? Because it'd take too long for a thief to get through it. So there's lots of ways of doing things that early people developed. But the big deal about, for example, well, what happens if you break a mirror? Right? In ancient societies, the problem wasn't just mirrors. It was breaking any kind of vessel. And if you look in early myth, like especially myth cycles of the Irish are really paranoid about breaking stuff. As a matter of fact, when you break a glass in some cultures, in English-speaking cultures, what are you supposed to do? Toss salt over your shoulder. You ever heard that? Yeah. You heard that? Yeah. Breaking a glass is considered, unlucky. So by putting stuff in a jar, and I mean this is but anyway, a kibotos, a box. He built an ark. A box. That's kind of interesting. Ice, the is added, to rescue, soteria, rescue, saving. Soteria is a word that's used all the time in the Gospels and in the New Testament to mean to save. It's not really it's ho, but that's okay. His, it's autos, so it's the reflexive pronoun in the accusative case. So it's his self. In English, we don't have an exact duplicate. Oikos is a dwelling. His house, oikos, a dwelling. By, it's dia, through. There's two different types of throughs. Okay, I have peri, that means through all over, completely through. And I have dia. Dia is a preposition. You see the difference? Like, if I walk through the door, I take my body through the door. If I am peri, I'm pierced all through, right? So one is object and the other is the action of the word. So a preposition defines the motion or movement of a noun, right? By some means, a prepositional phrase, where peri means something that's happened to the object, as opposed to dia, which means the object doing something. The is added, which is hos, which is close, hos. He condemned, katakrino, to judge against. Katakrino, to judge against. The cosmos, the orderly arrangement of creation. I really get irritated about the way that our translators like to play fast and loose with these words especially. Because we have the cosmos. First of all, we have theos. And we have the plenum of everything. Okay, the plenum of everything. This is Greek thought, but it fits with our thought. Here's the cosmos. It's the created universe. Within the cosmos is philosophia, which is what man can know. And within the philosophia is gay, what you can perceive with your eyes. Gay is the proper word for world. Cosmos is the proper word for the creation. So in this case, our translators translated cosmos as world. The word in Greek is gay, and they should not have translated world, because it's not talking about the world, it's talking about the whole creation. And Kai became genomais, to cause to be, Claire nomos, a share by lot. Heir is good, inheritor of the, it's really ho, but it's a possessive, it's a genitive case. Righteous, diakosone, equity, which is added, it's not by, it's kata, which is down, pistis, down persuasion. So here's a literal translation. Persuaded, Noah uttered an oracle through not even yet looked at, being circumspect, literally take well carefully, he prepared thoroughly a box to rescue of his self-dwelling, through which he judged against, literally sentenced the orderly arrangement of creation, and caused to be a sharer by lot of equity down persuasion. Okay, we need a translation of this. So here's a translation of this. Noah was persuaded to utter an oracle concerning the future. Being circumspect, he prepared thoroughly a box, an ark, to rescue his dwelling, the gay, through which he sentenced the creation and became an inheritor of equity by persuasion. In other words, persuasion proved itself by becoming so. Okay, in 6 it said, those who find God do so through the logical argument of the gospel. Literally, it is impossible to come near and gratify God unless one is persuaded by a logical argument. Noah gave an oracle, a prophecy. What's a prophecy? I mean, in the Greek sense.
It's a word from the gods.
It's a word from the gods, which is, by the way, Evangelion, right? We're talking about the gospel, right? That's what we're talking about, the gospel. So he literally received the gospel, the Evangelion, the good news from the gods. It was the good news from God, but in the Greek worldview or the Greek thought, he received the good news from the gods. And what did he do about it? He was persuaded by that logical argument. In other words, we know, and we'll go back and we'll look at Genesis to see what it says specifically, but we know for a fact that God came to Noah, and God said to Noah, what did he say? Build an ark because I'm going to flood the world, and, right, I'm going to destroy, he's going to destroy the what? The gay. He didn't. Did God destroy the cosmos?
No.
No, he destroyed, he wiped the gay. All right? This is very specific. And so in the Greek, Noah was persuaded to utter an oracle concerning the future, being circumspect, handling it well. He prepared thoroughly an ark, a box, to rescue his dwelling, the gay, through which he sentenced the creation. We'll get to the second part. Do you see this part about the box? You know, this is why I tied it to Pandora. Because he produced, okay, Hebrew worldview, Greek worldview. This is an intersection of cultures here, right? So why is Pandora's box, why is the box that Pandora had such a big deal? What did she keep in it?
All the bad stuff.
Well, she let the bad stuff out, right, accidentally, but was able to keep in it hope. Elpis. What is our Elpis? I mean, look, you can't make this up. The Greeks knew this. The minute he used the word box, he didn't throw the word, okay, what words could he have used? He could have said ship or boat, or he could have used the Hebrew word. He didn't. He used kabitos, which basically pointed every Greek hearer, to this idea of the box. Pandora's box. That's the biggest thing. There are other boxes too in their mythos, but that's the box. And Noah put his household and the world in that box. And it became what? The hope, right? Because when the box was opened up, when the gay was saved at the end, well, look what it says. Through which he sentenced the creation and became an inheritor of equity by persuasion. He became an inheritor of equity by persuasion. How did he sentence the creation?
Well, if they didn't get in the box, they weren't saved. He gave them a chance.
Because if Noah had not survived, what would have happened to Christ? There would be no need for Christ, right? Because if Noah had not survived, all of humanity would be gone, right? And so there's no need for Christ. So no, solved God's problem, right? Well, no, it didn't, because this is wholly theological. Why did God create man? Well, the Bible tells us, right? Let's make a being like unto ourselves. It says it. And so God created a being basically that he could love. I mean, okay, this is totally theological. I'm sorry I'm touching totally on a theological plane. But God would not want his creation, the peak of creation. You definitely wouldn't want women, because that is the peak of creation. But, the guys can tag along too. I mean, there's kind of necessary to humanity. So I guess they're a reasonable positive. But God could definitely not let the peak of his creation be annihilated. And so therefore, Noah sentenced the creation. Because because human beings survived, then Christus had to come to redeem him. Noah could not redeem. But the hope of Noah was that there would be Christ. This stuff is really deep. And you know what? The average reader, I mean, we have, number one, we have to look at it basically in the Greek to see what it really says. And then when we look at it in the Greek, we look at it historically. And when I point out these things historically to you, I mean, I think you get it, right? I mean, it becomes obvious, right? But every Greek hearer and reader is thinking exactly this. And to them, to us, it's difficult. Because this isn't our world. Well, our world is not this. Our thinking is not this. America, I hope that our brains are hurting a little bit because we have to think, because then we'll be more like the Greeks. Because I think the Greeks had it right. They thought about everything, probably too much. Probably a preoccupation. Where I think we don't think enough about stuff. We worry about stuff. We don't think about it. right? Anyway, and the point was diakosune. Now let's look at Genesis chapter 6. Let's see. There's Genesis 6. There's a bunch of stuff in Ezekiel, so I guess I'll start with 6. 6:1, men came to increase the number of the earth, and the daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that daughters of men were beautiful. Okay, forget about that. That's okay. The Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be numbered 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. We won't get into that. That's just interesting stuff. God saw the Lord 5. Yahweh saw a man's great wickedness on the earth had become, and every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. And God was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind whom I've created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground and birds of the air, for I am grieved with what I made, that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of God. And 9 says, this is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Now I want to point out something to you. Remember I told you? In English and Latin. Intro, body, conclusion. In Greek, logos, which put up here. These are logos to tell us. Hebrew, synopsis body. Look what it says. I love this. This is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. That's synopsis. Now the body. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become. And the earth, in the Septuagint, that's gay, the earth, not the cosmos. For all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, here's the oracle. I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. That's the evangelion, right? That's the word from the gods. The good word from the gods. It's a good word because, 14, so make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you build it. It tells you how to build it, la la la, 2 of each kind put in it. And 22, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. And we know the end result. Let's see, 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark, you and your whole family. I've found righteousness in this generation. And it's the description of all this stuff, 40 days and 40 nights, all this stuff happened. And by the way, I do want to mention this. When it says 40 days and 40 nights, you know why it says it, right? I want you to remember this because it's very important. Yeah. In cultures, this is a mercantile culture, and actually they're a raiding culture, pillaging culture. But in a mercantile pillaging type culture, if I have 2 people that are negotiating a price, I can count to 40, because I got 10 fingers and 10 toes on each person, and that adds up to 40. So one of the reasons they use the term 40 days and 40 nights is because it means beyond counting. So 40 days and 40 nights means it's a yom. Remember, there's 2 words in Hebrew for time. There's olim and there's yom. Y-O-H-M thing. Yom. Anyway, yom means a period of time, and olim means eternity. So this is a yom that is uncountable. And by the way, we know other cultures that have similar type sayings. For example, the American Indians, many moons, right? Many moons. There are other cultures. It's really funny because in Greek, I told you, Greek 5, the ordinal 5 means 5. The ordinal 6 means 5 plus 1. 7 is 5 plus 2. They're a base 5 system. The Romans are base 5 system too. They're really hard to work in base 5, but base 5 is their system. The reason people go base 5 is because 5 fingers. We go base 10 is a better system. We got 10. I like 10. 10 is easy to work with. And 60 is because of the, 60. If I bring in, I got a merchant, I got a priest, and I got the seller. Most cultures don't need a priest. There was one culture that needed a priest. You know which culture it was, right? Babylonian. The Zoroastrian culture needed a priest for a merchant to make a transaction. And so guess what? How many fingers, how many do I have? 60. So have you ever wondered why there's 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour? That's because of the Zoroastrian. The Zoroastrians gave us that. They also like to time they're the first guys in at clocks because they wanted to time stuff. It's kind of weird, but that's the way they were. That's okay. Anyway, let's see. Here's the creatures, 40 days. I should have put in 8 here too. I really should. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out in 23. Men and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds of the air were wiped out from the earth. Only Noah was left and those with him in the ark. And the flooded the earth for 150 days. The reason I should have put in the rest or the other part is because the very important thing about Noah is what did we get from Noah apart from all this? What did Noah give us? Do you know what we got from Noah, or actually from God to Noah?
Covenant.
Yeah, the Noahic covenant. This is really, really important. Every Greek, the minute I say Noah to the Greek teen hodos, Maravik, the minute I say Noah to a rabbi, the rabbi, if he's not thinking Noahic covenant, then he ain't a good rabbi. Because Noahic covenant is what we is, unless one of you is a Jewish person who's gone through the Jewish ritual to be named a Jew, okay, then you are all Gentiles. And a Gentile is covered by the Noahic covenant, not by the Mosaic covenant. Although we do the commandments, the Noahic commandments and the Mosaic commandments are slightly different. There's 2 things in the Noahic covenants. There are 2 things that are in the Mosaic covenants that the Noahic covenant does not require you to do. One is to obey your parents. That is in the Mosaic covenant and not in the Noahic covenant. Can't get away with it, but obeying your parents is not in there. The other one is the Sabbath, Shabbat. So Shabbat and obeying your parents. Why do you think those 2 would not be required of the Gentiles? Why would the Gentiles have to do almost everything else, but not those 2? If a Gentile wanted to become a Jew or a teen hodos, what would they have to do? Disobey their heritage. Disobey their parents. If your parents are of some pagan religion or idea, what do you think your parents will say? If you're in Athens and they kill you because you are not following the gods, what do you think your parents will tell you? Son, daughter, if you don't follow the gods, what's going to happen? They might kill you, and what else? They'll kill us because we raised you, and you're wrong. The other thing is why Shabbat is because, by the way, you guys none of you follow Shabbat at all. What's Shabbat?
Well, it's Friday to Saturday.
What day are you supposed to keep holy? Well, did you? Did you follow Shabbat? Are you following Shabbat today? What are you doing? You guys got your baked beans sitting on there? You're not going to turn on your lights when you go home? Or turn on your heat? Right? Well, I guess today we could leave the heat on and we'd be okay, but you better, Tammy said we didn't set our thermostats for daylight savings time, so the house was cold when we woke up. So, I mean, we're really in trouble if we can't touch the switch to fix that, right? You're not supposed to do that in Shabbat. You're not supposed to turn lights on. That's why they leave them on. That's why they do the candles just before, because the candles have to stay on. Anyway, those two things are Noahic covenant, and you're not supposed to do it. Now, Ezekiel, let's see what Ezekiel has in here. 13. This is Ezekiel 14:13. Son of man, I'll read from 12. The word of the Lord came to me. The word of Jehovah came to me. Son of man, if a country sins against me by being unfaithful, and I stretch out my hand against it to cut off its food supply and send famine upon it and kill its men and their animals. 14. Even if these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they could save only themselves by their righteousness, declares the sovereign God. Or if I send wild beasts through that country and leave it childless, and it becomes desolate, so that no one can pass through it because of the beasts. On and on. And then 20. I guess I'll start with 19. Or if I send a plague into that land and pour out my wrath upon it through bloodshed, killing its men and their animals. 20. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, they could save neither son nor daughter. They would save only themselves by their righteousness. 21. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. How much worse will it be when I send against Jerusalem my four dreadful judgments, sword and famine and wild beast and plague, to kill its men and their animals. Now, this should be obvious. Why is this a big deal right now? Why, what does this hit with it? Where did they come from? They came from
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, yeah. In 70 AD, and we believe, and I will argue that this is after 70 AD. I'll say 80 AD. I don't know when. It was prior to the end of the century, but it was definitely after 70 AD, after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. So after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, what happened?
And we were essentially refugees.
Yeah, and the sword, the famine, all this stuff to Ezekiel. So the minute, remember, we're not like this, right? Have any of you memorized the Septuagint in English or Greek, right? And when I say, have anybody memorized the Bible? I mean, you memorize parts of the Bible, but in this era, people read the whole Bible. Now, the fact that they're pulling this information out of Ezekiel would tell me that they're probably talking about LXX. And the reason is because, remember, in this period, if you were a Hebrew, you memorized the Torah, the first 5. But unless you were a rabbi, basically, unless you were a rabbi of the Pharisees, you did not go on to memorize the other books. However, this was a popular book. I mean, people memorized the Septuagint. And almost every educated person educated within this class who were literate would have memorized the Septuagint in Greek. So the minute I say Noah, what does that do to your brain? Like laser, you go to each of the Noah texts, and it's the context of the text. So you know what happened to Noah. The rest of us, I have to look it up in my Bible commentary to find out where the other texts are, but it's in Ezekiel. And Ezekiel's talking about the destruction of Jerusalem and about the plagues on Jerusalem. Does this sound like... And the very important words about this, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, they could save neither their son nor daughter. They could only save themselves by their righteousness, by their dikosune. And you notice what it says at the end of this 7, in 7. Noah was persuaded to utter an oracle concerning the future. Being circumspect, he prepared thoroughly a box to rescue his dwelling. through which he sentenced the creation and became an inheritor of dikaiosune, of equity, by persuasion. And this is almost like it came right out of Ezekiel, right? So, and it goes on. Let's go to the next verse, to 8. This is one of those. I'm not going to say it's a logos, a telos. Okay, got all kinds of stuff in here. Translation. All right. Then we go to 8. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. That's hard to say in English. Let's see what it says in the Greek. By is added faith, pieces, persuasion. Abraham, when he was called. Okay. The word is kaleo. Why is kaleo a big word to us? Because ecclesia. What's an ecclesia?
Church.
It's the word translated church. It actually means the Athenian democracy. It's those who are called out. Kaleo, called out. Think there's a parallel going on here? I mean, it's a simple word. It's a word. But why pick the word? You know, we could have said Abraham when he was spoken to, logos, oracle, right? I mean, the authors picked these words because they wanted to pick these specific words. Abraham, when he was kaleo, to call, to go out, it's exchromai, to issue, to come or go, into, it's ice, into a place, literally topos, a spot, hos, which, he should after it's mellow, to attend, to be about. That doesn't sound like after to me, but that's okay. Receive. It's not receive, it's lambano. To take. To take. For, it's not for, it's to. To. An inheritance. Clara nomai. It's the same word used before about Noah. Inheritance. So what was the inheritance of Noah? Let's see, the inheritance of Noah. Inheritance of Noah. He became an heir. He became an inheritor of righteousness, of equity, of dikaiosune, by persuasion. Okay? So Noah was an inheritor of righteousness because he was persuaded. He took to an inheritance, a heirship, a klerotonomai, obeyed, it says obeyed, it's hupokuo. Hupokuo. It's a hupo word. To hear under. To hear under. They translate it to be obey, but hupokuo, remember those hupo words? Hupo is not, the Greeks had other words, very militaristic words, to mean when you were, you remember when I was talking about in Mark, the word optio, and I told you that word optio specifically called out a military type position, and basically Jesus Christ told Simon Peter to be his optio. In other words, get behind me and follow me, right? That is a military type command word. The hupo words we know are a little different. Because remember the hupo? We had the hupo, what's the hupo? You know where it says that man was created, or God was created, I'm going to butcher this, but Christ was created under God, and man was created under Christ, and woman was created under man. Remember that? And that's the way it's kind of translated, because they're using hupo. But it's hupotasso. Literally, it says that Christ was given the power to to make things orderly under God. Man was given the power to make things orderly under Christ. Woman was given the power, or should be given the power, to make things orderly under a man. And it specifies a man, where the others are thee. In other words, it's not saying that women, we translate hupotasso to be subject to. God, Christ is subject to God, man is subject to Christ, woman is subject to man. But that's not what it says at all. And we look at the Greek culture and we know that women did not need to be told to be subject, because they were subject, right? What the church needed to be told was that women should be given the power to order their households. In other words, be given the power that I think God intended for them. And that's a theological idea too, okay? But the point here is it says, it uses the word specifically, hupokuo, to hear under. In other words, it's not obey, it's hupokuo. If I give you the instruction, okay, Brad, I want you to organize my stuff. Now, what do? You don't know how I want to organize my stuff. You organize it the way you think it should be, right? And I might be kind of upset with that, because it depends on how, people with a messy desk, don't touch my desk, because they know where everything is. But if I hupotasso you and give you the authority, so if I hupokuo you, I'm not obeying, I'm not commanding you. What am I doing?
Authorizing.
I'm authorizing. I'm giving you the power to do something under me. Okay? And Kai, he went out, he issued, exchromai, he issued not knowing. The word is epistamia. I should have probably made this word today, but there's so many of these words that we could have for the words today. To put the mind upon. So not knowing, epistamia is probably good, not to put the mind upon. Whither po, literally, what locality, he eroshakromai, he went, he come or go. So, here's the literal. Abraham was persuaded to be called to issue from to go or come into a spot which to attend to, about to be, to take to an airship he heard under, and issued not putting his mind upon what locality he went. Okay. We need a translation of this. Abraham was persuaded by a call to issue into a place which he was about to take as an airship. He listened and issued, not putting his mind upon where he went. Okay, there's nothing really super earth-shattering in here. But I think the important point is, okay, we just had to talk about Noah and and we saw that traced back to Ezekiel. And in both Noah's day and Ezekiel about Noah, there was a decimation of the gay. And the people fled from it, right? Look what it says. Abraham was persuaded by a call to issue into a place which he was about to take as an airship. He listened and issued, not putting his mind upon where he went. What happened to the people that were kicked out of Jerusalem, the refugees from Jerusalem? Right? And what this team, okay, if I'm Teen Hodos and I'm the ecclesia, those who are called out. Ecclesia means those who are called out. So if I'm the ecclesia and those who are called out, what's my impression? Why? Okay. The proper impression, you could just say, I'm running, right? But what do you think the impression of the Hebrews, of the writer of Hebrews is? Why are you in Alexandria now? What would we say? Why did Martin Luther got kicked out of his church, right? He was called, right? In other words, it's a different face on the same picture. I mean, they got kicked out of Jerusalem. Because, I guess they could have stayed there, right? The place was decimated. The place was the walls were taken down. They destroyed the temple. They destroyed the people. They killed everything they could. The Romans did. Because of the rebellions in Jerusalem, in Israel and Levant. And so those that were left over, the remnant, remember that? We've had the remnant. They were called to go someplace else. And they went. So the picture here is they are just like Abraham, right? And the picture here is they are just like Noah. And the picture here is there. Is this a different picture? I mean, if I read this, all right, if I just go back and I read this and I say, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. All right, I can kind of get the picture. If somebody explains to me about Jerusalem and what's going on, I might get a picture of that a little bit. But when I read it in the Greek, Abraham was persuaded by a call to issue into a place which he was about to take as an heirship. He listened and issued, not putting his mind upon where he went. Total different feel to me. The same way with the Noah text. Because it makes, if I'm one of the people that is hearing this letter, what do the authors want me to do? Relate to the people they're mentioning, right? Right? To be like them, because it goes back to, and I'll remind you, if you go back and look, where did my paper go? What is it? What does 2 say? Verse 2, the translation. Read it, Brett.
Citing a reason, and the membership of the Israelite Sanhedrin became a witness. Sanhedrin became a witness.
In other words, you are all witnesses to these things, just like those other guys. That's the message. That's the point. We'll get more into that. Thank you, Father, for your word. We pray you look after us this week. In your name we pray. Amen.